All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We're seeing some folks adding now, but as I mentioned before, out of respect for the folks that have arrived on time, we're going to start on time. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. My name is Matt Pfeiffer. We are so excited this morning to kick off our brand new group and series focused on winning with Walmart.com, hosted by our friend Ryan King, who you're going to get to meet in a few minutes. And this morning, we're so excited to welcome Matthew Adam Smith for the very first gathering of this brand new group. He's the Director of Marketplace Strategy and Business Development for Walmart eCommerce, and we'll be hearing a lot more from him in a moment. But just a few sort of housekeeping things before we get started. First of all, to learn more and to apply for Walmart Marketplace, there's a QR code. I'm giving everyone an opportunity to grab there, and we'll put it up on the screen again later as well. This and every other series hosted by Conversations on Retail is presented by Westrock Coffee Company. They've got offices in 10 countries, and they are sourcing coffee from 35 different origin countries. Special thanks to our friends at Westrock Coffee. This series is also sponsored by BlueRyse and by Wabata, Infinity Blue, and Content Status. We're so excited to have all of them involved in this series, and we appreciate their support. Last couple things that I'll mention is this is intended to be a conversation, not a presentation, and we mean that quite literally. So anytime anyone wants to participate in the conversation, we would simply ask that you click on the Q&A button within Zoom and submit your questions or comments in writing. And then Ryan and Matthew will either sort of take those as they go or take them at the end. Last thing I'll say is super excited. One of the things that really makes this group different from the others that we have active already is that we've sort of split it into 2 monthly gatherings. One is going to be like what we're doing this morning, which is sort of getting to know an expert, a practitioner. And then the second is what we call office hours, where it gives people an opportunity to bring their issues, to bring their questions, and to have sort of the community involved. And so getting those questions answered, getting some of those problems solved. And again, this whole thing is about iron sharpening iron. So join the winningwithwalmart.com group, and you'll be able to submit your questions throughout the week. And then Ryan will have those ready as we get together. So again, we're so glad you're here. Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Matt, thank you so much. Great to be here. Excited to kick this off. Matthew, thank you for joining us for this inaugural session here as we get these conversations going. This is, for me, a fun experiment of figuring out how do we continue to provide both the high level, horizon level view of what's happening in Walmart and the marketplace, but also combine that with actionable insights that solve issues that are present all the way down to the tactical as we have these multiple types of meetings going on. Real quick for everybody, just a little bit further about Matthew here. Matthew's background, he joined Walmart in 2019 to launch the company's retail media network, Walmart Connect. And since 2021, he's led marketplace strategy and business development and marketplace community engagement for Walmart eCommerce. He's been focused on driving new seller acquisition to scale the assortment of products available to customers on Walmart.com. And prior to Walmart, Matthew was a veteran sales and marketing leader of disruptor media brands, including Men's Health, Wired, Fast Company, and Dr. Oz. And so Matthew has a finger on the pulse, really, of what's been happening with Walmart Marketplace, as well as kind of this idea of what it looked like to emerge and grow in the Walmart Marketplace. And Matthew, it's great to have you on. I think we met a little over a year ago, actually, at a conference focused on e-commerce called Prosper Show.
Yeah.
And then so it's fun to reconnect and keep the conversation going.
Spooky timing, isn't it? like almost a year to the day. And to Matt Pfeiffer, our illustrious host, I think two thoughts, Matt, on this format. One is iron sharpening iron. I feel like, Ryan, you're the iron, and I'm probably more like aluminum or gold, whatever the most malleable is. But also the fact that we're doing 2 a month, and the first one happens and then the second one's sort of a reaction to that, right? I think that means that this can go really, really well, and the second one will be great. Or even if this one goes awfully, maybe the second one will be really well attended because of that. Probably wasn't the intended effect, Matt Pfeiffer, but we'll try to make it more the former. We hope it goes well.
Yeah, I think we're set up pretty good here. Having Matthew on, we kind of stack the deck here to make sure we get a great result. So
This will be fun. I
um,
hope we get some participation for sure. It'll be fun.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think this will be fun back and forth here and talking through these things together here. Um, Maybe as we kick it off, if based on our background, we met in an e-commerce space in a venue that's been going since 2016, talking to marketplace sellers that have been building brands, native e-commerce brands, and others. Obviously, we have people in the audience as well that are retail brands as well that are exploring the continued strategies, expanding to marketplace. All these things. I think the common thing we're seeing across the board is the theme of omnichannel, whether or not we're using the word e-commerce or just commerce. I know Walmart's been talking about one Walmart and a lot of these different
Hmm.
things as this has been an emerging trend.
Hmm.
So it's been exciting to see really what Walmart's been doing, these massive strides. There's been major moves over the last 5 years and previous, but especially in the last 2 years, from the time we first met, and maybe predating when we first met, but especially even in this last year, it's been a lot of acceleration. And so I think one of the questions that we can kick things off with is with Walmart's engagement, and from your perspective, um, why is now a good time for people to be considering the marketplace with Walmart as part of their strategy?
Yeah, that's a big question. And that word,
I'll start with an easy one.
I think I have that word omni-channel actually in my headline or byline on LinkedIn. And the more I see it and the more we use it, I just think, the customer doesn't use this word. This is a word that we started using or somebody invented to talk about how do you reach and compel and convert a customer who is shopping in different channels. But it's yeah, Walmart is just so in the crosshairs, right, of that evolution. So it's super exciting time to be there. Um, why is now a good time? And I mean, I think probably the best place to start is Doug's last earnings report, right? Which was from Q4 that the total revenue of Walmart was, I think, 164 billion, and Walmart U.S. comp sales were up 8.3%, I think, and 13.9 on a 2-year stack. And then if you look at e-commerce specifically, the growth was 23% on a 2-year stack. So e-commerce is so responsible for so much of the growth that we're seeing at Walmart right now. And I think because of that, sellers are increasingly choosing Walmart Marketplace. So, Walmart Marketplace sits sort of at the tip of the spear of that e-commerce growth initiative. And, that's why you're seeing us more present. That's why you're seeing, Big Blue out there in more rooms. I mean, I think that's why a year ago we were at Prosper. And I remember, it was kind of the first time Walmart had officially gone into a room full of, folks from that other platform, right? And it was sort of a toe in the water and, trying to find out, is this a safe space? Is it a good space? Is it the right space? And if so, how do we engage with it, right? And I think for the year since then, you've probably seen from your seat, Ryan, just a steady and growing presence, but also I think a posture of not just going and telling, but also listening and really trying to learn, right? And approach this community because it's a heterogeneous mix, right, of all sorts of different actors. Hopefully the folks on the call today, represent that. So, but I think because of that posture, because of the moment in time, right, because of the sheer scale of the opportunity, we're seeing massive growth on the marketplace. And the experience of getting on now is much faster and easier than it used to be. I mean, I remember a year ago at Prosper, you might have been one of them, although you've been pretty early to the party on the Walmart e-commerce wagon. There have been stories of it being maybe difficult or folks not really understanding how to get on. And then once they're on, how do I win? And thankfully, I think we've really, really taken strides to make that an easier process. So, and then once you're on, we've got all sorts of programs to accelerate, whether it's a fulfillment issue, like how do I guarantee 2-day delivery to a customer? I'm here, my warehouse is here, customer is here. Walmart Fulfillment Services, as you know, makes that very easy, right? Just ship to us on pallets, and we'll pick, pack, and ship, and handle customer service and returns, et cetera. Once you get the right assortment on, we've got Walmart Connect, which can give you great options, particularly in the sponsored products or sponsored search, pay-per-click space, to start really, really driving and increasing and raising your rankings in the search and drive conversion. So I think the tissue is there. The skeleton is there. We're fleshing it out, both on capabilities and programs. And then there's just sort of the brass tacks stuff that, we can use here and there to help people get going and start to see some good, margins out of the gate. So we actually have a program right now called New Seller Incentives, which will give new sellers 25% off our referral fees and also an opportunity for a $500 credit for those sponsored products campaigns with Walmart Connect. So I think it's really a big mix, right? You start from, I like to say, upside down triangle, right? Of, what's I think you said halo, right? Or 30,000 foot view opportunity. And then, you say that's Walmart, and then it's e-commerce, and then it's marketplace. And then it's sort of like, where do I sit in that, in that funnel, and what are the things I need to succeed? So again, I think we're trying to lead with ears, and probably hands second to go build, what we hear folks need. And then kind of taking it from there. That was a lot, but hope I covered the broad strokes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think we a big question, like I said, opened with a broad one there. And again, if you're listening to this is a good time. If you have questions about this, if anything's sparking interest, feel free to chime in, ask a question, drop it in chat, something like that. And we're happy to steer a conversation in that direction, make sure we're answering those questions as well. One question I'll ask, kind of jumping off of that, what you're talking about is how Walmart specifically is focusing on it. Maybe if you want to, maybe comparison or contrast with maybe other marketplaces. We don't have to drop names here of other marketplaces, anything like that. But what would you say? Why Walmart? What is different? Instead of it's not a carbon copy. I hear people say all the time, it's the marketplace. It's this marketplace of insert your year that was 10 years ago here.
You can say the word. I'll cover my ears. You can say it.
All right. So people are saying Amazon of 2000, whatever, and whatever it is. I'm curious, your perspective, is it that, or is it different? In what ways is it different? Why should people compare them maybe in different ways? What other opportunities does Walmart present?
Yeah. I'll start with how it's similar to, maybe that other one and other large growing ones, in scale. Right. And so that just sort of, I think, should put it in the, sort of upper echelon of the consideration set, right? Because you want to make sure you can scale, right? And you can multiply for every, ounce of LOE you put into the equation, right? You're going to probably work as hard, right, on a small marketplace as you do on a large marketplace. So if you can start large, depending upon, sort of where you are in your business planning, your financial situation, et cetera, like all the better, right? So maybe I'll cross that one off the list as sort of how we're similar, right? But the best way to think about us versus other marketplaces out there in terms of our strategic approach, right? And it's all about the customer and what the customer needs to get out of this, right? We don't win unless our customers win on a marketplace. Our customers don't win unless our sellers win, and vice versa, right? So like all those three sort of priorities, right? Walmart, our customer, and our sellers, they really have to be aligned. And the way we do that, first of all, is we've created a marketplace that is open, but that is also fair and safe. And so what I mean by that is, we provide the platform, we provide tools, we obviously provide a large audience of over 120 million, monthly shoppers. And then we have to enforce safety and, product legal compliance, safety compliance, to make sure that bad actors don't find a home, and people in the space will know and have experienced, eras and chapters where you know exactly what I'm talking about. And, nobody wins there. I mean, maybe the bad actor wins, for a moment in time until they get booted, but ultimately the platform suffers, the customer experience suffers. And so, we have to work against that. But with that, we're not invite only, and we're not particularly curated, right? In terms of eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes. We really welcome all the sellers out there who meet our requirements. And the requirements are pretty simple. It's basically, are you a legitimate business, and a good actor? So from just starting with a business tax ID or a license number, there's some supporting documents, sort of table stakes, like your SKUs have to be transactable, with GTIN or UPC, company prefix numbers. And then the catalog, of course, has to be compliant with Walmart's trust and safety policies, right? We have a prohibited products policy that must be followed. And then you just have to be able to ship and accept returns rather, or increasingly use our services there, Walmart fulfillment services, which has an analog, on that other platform, which you're thinking, but we won't say. But the reason it's open, right, and this is where we get back to the customer and delivering for the customer. At the scale of Walmart, to ensure EDLP, as we say, and I'll apologize in advance for acronyms I throw out there. And if anyone doesn't know one, please raise your hand or put it in the chat, and I'll try to define it. EDLP is everyday low prices, and that's what Walmart guarantees to our customers, part of the customer promise. You guys will know the only way to do that is really to create the market dynamics, right, and an engine and an economy, really, right, where there's sufficient demand, but also enough supply, enough great offers from enough great sellers to ensure that we're getting the very, very best price and the best offer overall, right? Not just price, but shipping and obviously item quality and great customer service, which, can be great reviews, obviously can be an indicator of that. But none of that really happens at scale unless you make it open, right? Which means make it applicable, make it relevant, make it attractive, and open to the largest amount and variety of sellers possible, because you need them to bring the maximum amount and diversity of products, right, to the platform to get the engine going. And that's, I think, everyone, what we've seen in years past with other marketplaces. Get that engine going by bringing the customer everything you possibly can, right? And then letting the market dynamics really power the experience. And so that's what I mean when we say open, but also open while being fair and safe, right? So if you start from the scale of Walmart.com being over 120 million monthly shoppers, what's interesting there is, why Walmart, why now? That's a pretty large fraction of certain other platforms out there. But at this moment in time, the number of sellers on the platform is a much, much smaller fraction, right? And what that means is, comparatively, your share of voice as a seller on Walmart.com is comparatively and competitively much, much higher than on other marketplaces. So there's this unique window where sellers can get on and onboard and start building their case, building their search relevancy, but while also having that sort of tailwind of just greater share of voice and less competition for the customer's eyeballs right out of the gate. And where that can lead is just greater share of wallet. So that's super exciting. I think we talk about who do we want? We want the broadest diversity of sellers. And so from a category perspective, you're going to see basically everything that, can legally and safely and profitably transact in e-commerce today. And, we've been approving new categories very rapidly. But if you look at the categories that do well in e-commerce today and that are really active, we're increasingly sort of reflecting that sort of pie chart. And that pie chart's changing, as you know, Ryan. I think we were talking earlier, I read about the news out of eMarketer a few days ago about, apparel number one, but, the next few years, they expect home and furniture to probably be a solid number two. And, maybe in that same amount of time, the consumable space, particularly, personal care and hygiene, things like that, that's expected to grow by the biggest CAGR, over the next few years. So super exciting. Again, that's a barometer on the customer, right? And just the business landscape. And because of Walmart's scale, and the fact that we're open, right, while being fair and safe, means that we're going to move with that. And you're going to be able to find that on Walmart. And so brands do well, obviously. Walmart being omni-channel, we come from a brand universe, right? But it's not just our legacy 1P suppliers, although they can find great value in marketplace with things like catalog extension, whatever they didn't come to a deal with, with that buyer during the mod planning cycle, bring it on. And I think what's interesting is I'm now hearing that played back in the space from just, people I'll meet at events who've noticed that shift in tune, right, from Walmart's leadership and particularly the merchant leadership, which is, we expect full catalog and we expect you to bring it on Walmart Marketplace, which is great for a variety of reasons. But, on the other end of the spectrum, essentially all the e-com native brands or those who've been, sort of straddling between 1P and 3P, certainly DTC brands is an exciting space as some of those start to really plateau and look at new, ways to grow. I did a session a couple weeks ago with a great brand called Clean Cult, which is a sustainable household cleaning brand that launched in DTC, hit that wall on margins, and essentially said, we've got to diversify in order to basically grow this brand because it's a very capital intensive space. They are such a success story. They came into marketplace 9 months ago, and literally 24 hours after our panel together 2 weeks ago, they launched in more than 3,000 stores in Walmart. So, that opportunity for Walmart Marketplace, and you said, how are we different? We're the only platform where that can happen, right? Where Marketplace is not just a digital entry point, but to get back to that, buzzword the customer doesn't care about, but which we do, an omni-channel entry point, right? But then I think the other thing, and this is where Walmart has had to grow the most because it's essentially a net new cohort, is what I'll call those sort of one-to-many opportunities, right? So if you're a distributor, if you're a wholesaler who's capable of moving product directly on marketplaces, if you're a reseller, right, or an authorized reseller or a brand aggregator, like what's great about these guys is they bring really huge assortments that cross like a lot of categories. And so that's what drives selection at scale, drives the engine, right? And ultimately helps us get to parity and then hopefully surpass at some point, right? So I've given you a lot there, but essentially by being open, fair, and safe, right, and having the scale of Walmart behind you, both for e-com and marketplace, but also for omni-channel and a pathway into stores, and then this understanding that we're open to all of the core sort of cohorts of e-com sellers, right, who are here to compete in an item-based universe, right, which is probably where I'll land, right, which is, it's not your grandfather's Walmart where the merchants were, pinning all the 1P items left and right and, gating, or not gating or certain categories couldn't come on. It's essentially, it's a level playing field for the customer, because for customer to win, it wouldn't be enough for us to just invite a lot of great sellers on, right, with great assortments. We have to make sure they have an equal shot at that buy box, right? And I think that's been a super exciting shift as well. And so that's another thing people will find and might cause folks to rethink, right, this idea of Walmart's relevance to e-com sellers. That was like 6 mouthfuls, but did I give you anything to work with there?
Yeah, absolutely. So one way, a theme in that we've seen in marketplaces in general that I'm also seeing in Walmart, and Walmart introduces it in an interesting way. Macro theme is a democratization of brand building, and so that's been a trend from marketplace of these brands, rather than going directly all the way up the channel to figuring out how do I do retail brick and mortar, have learned maybe capital efficient ways of proving market concept, those things, and building that background as either as the end goal, or as you said, if they're hitting ceiling, saying what other avenues to expand and grow. So that presents great opportunity for native e-commerce brands, obviously.
I love that you said democratic. I've said that every now and then I've thought, oof, what if what if the clip doesn't get the context before and after?
We just got our sound right there. There it is.
But I love that, because I think if you're going to win in any channel, I think you have to win in all channels now, just for a brand to win, right? The myopic approach of the past is not going to work. And it's because we know customer is now cross-shopping everywhere, and customer shopping in an item-based way. And within that context, you have to assume they're going to find what they want somewhere, and they're going to snatch up the best possible offer, price, shipping, customer service, like everything we said before. So what that means is, like, you can't afford not to have an offer in front of that customer wherever they are, right? And that's impossible to do from a 1P perspective, right? The outlay and the logistics of that are impossible. Marketplaces democratize that, right? To use your expression, because they distribute that burden away from one retailer needing to do it, right, and pay for it, versus just using the economies of scale, using the power of multiple marketplaces everywhere to have an offer in front of customer when and where they want to shop, right? And so I think that's a huge shift in mindset, particularly for core legacy retailers like Walmart, it's exciting to see us, really leaning in there, because I think it essentially, if you think that, sort of old retail was about scarcity and control, right? There's only so many products and we got them. uh, Flip that completely, on its end. And that's where we are today. So yeah, I love that you said democratization, because that's exactly right.
We have a question to this point. Adrian's asking, what are some of the best ways for a retail brand, maybe to succeed on Walmart.com in terms of portfolio? Is it marketplace a chance to replicate the assortment you have on retail shelves and amplify reach, or is it an opportunity to differentiate a use occasion? Example, pack size.
Yeah. Wow, this person knows what they're talking about. I love it. I'll just answer and say yes and yes. But the context there is, and I think it's really interesting for folks who are working in 1P, or I think some people say retail. Essentially, you want the customer to get to see everything, and yes, that would mean literally anything you're not bringing via 1P that you have in your catalog that you can list, you should list via 3P. Right. And then that just becomes a resourcing question behind the scenes of, you're going to have to modulate and sort of operate in two capacities with Walmart. Right. I think we're getting those worlds closer, and you're going to see innovations helping that. There's certainly a lot of agencies that do that, or you could just, do it yourself internally, particularly if you're using WFS, right, where you can just ship on pallets, and essentially you're just going to ship, you're going to ship to a DC for the stores, and you're going to ship to Walmart Fulfillment Services in the eCom FC for that. But there's also an opportunity and a reason, to your second question about bringing the full catalog, actually listing all items on 3P, even if you've got some of them already on 1P. And the clearest use case for that is if and when the 1P item goes out of stock, don't you want to be next in line, to grab that sale via 3P, or do you want your reseller competitor to pick it up? Right. And so that's where, if you've got your eyes on both systems, you can be controlling price in such a way and controlling offer quality that you'll never be out of stock, because stock, and staying in stock will be a combination of 3P and 1P, I would say. And then, yeah, the third use case is absolutely, like, even where you have item overlap, 3P is a great space for you to test and use the sort of laboratory nursery effect of pack size and special bundles and special offers and things like that, because that's where you can afford to take more risk, right? Because it's essentially lower risk. You can afford to experiment versus, when you've agreed on a price and you've agreed on an amount of inventory that you've essentially sold to Walmart. It's sitting in our warehouse, and now Walmart, needs to sell it. The stakes are obviously much higher. Risk on both sides is higher, right? So, great question. And yeah, there's those are three areas, but we could probably talk a lot about just the utility of, that sort of 1P, 3P hybrid model on Walmart.
Yeah, and maybe to that point, to continue on, the other question we had from Amanda here was citing the Clean Cult case study here. And the clarification question here were they a marketplace seller that crossed over to brick and mortar, or were they D2C that skipped the marketplace and went to brick and mortar? And so the thing I would tack onto that maybe in that case study is, are there some specific examples, assuming, because I've heard of this case study and heard the presentation on the marketplace side, what are some of the levers they pulled? What is the laboratory kind of things they did that helped speed that process through?
Yeah. So for sure, Clean Cult was a DTC brand. It still is. They didn't close the DTC channel, right? They chose to diversify. They launched on Walmart Marketplace. And then because they did so well, so quickly, they got noticed, right? And it made sense for retail to then pick them up. But they're in stores as well. But they're also not ending their marketplace channel. And so that's just a great example of, again, amazing success story, right? Of use case DTC needing to expand and needing to diversify, needing a new high growth channel to compensate for the wall they were hitting in a very capital intensive space, and then doing very well there. Getting sort of like, the pipe dream, right, of getting into more than 3,000 stores, but then keeping it going. And the reason for that is that, as I said before, they recognize the power of the marketplace to be a laboratory, to be a place for innovation, to be a place where maybe they can make it rain twice, right? I mean, they did it for 9 months, and then merchants saw some really great items. They didn't bring them all in, right? And so great example of like somebody trying to really leverage that hybrid approach on 1P, 3P. To your question about like, what did we do? This is another great USP for Walmart Marketplace, which is for brands that really have an opportunity to bring, great value to our customers. And again, many of you on this call, most of you, if not all, will represent that. We're taking a very intentional and active and engaged posture in terms of account management, right? So at this moment in time where share of wallet, potential share of voice is very, very high, we might talk about, sort of brass tacks where we'll say the finances are very attractive. We also have this great opportunity to provide really high touch support to strategic brands and sellers. And so what that means is, well, everyone will be working through those first few weeks of onboarding and trying to get the offer listing quality up and making sure the catalog is published and, search relevancy is getting where it is and offer quality and shipping quality and everything needs to be true, right? Just to get you to win that buy box and get you in front of customer. Make sure that the search queries are getting matched to you, where relevant. We're going to provide a lot of high touch to help with that. So we've dedicated account management team that sits, within the SBUs and then is sort of verticalized, that will really help you and guide you sort of step by step. We have an incubation team that's going to guide you during the first 100 days of onboarding, right, to hit certain milestones, to make sure that, again, once you graduate from that program, you're looking good. And then for those strategic brands, you're going to have a dedicated account management team in perpetuity, right? Provided you hit those performance guidelines. And so that's a really, really unique mix we have right now is that, and you could say like, of course we have that because look at Clean Cult, look what they did. You got to be able to support that, right? Which is absolutely true. So super exciting time. Hope I answered the question.
No, I think I did a great job there. And there's that balance we're trying to do. And this one of the reasons why we have this second gathering in the month as well is, some of these we could go down the rabbit trail of all the tactics in the platform of which ones to engage with. But suffice to say, I think there's many strategies or tactics that can be applied in the marketplace that maybe allow for greater discoverability. Maybe get broader eyeballs, those kind of things. Whether it is I'll just mention a few from my awareness, and you might have a few there. Flash picks that are kind of the promotion deals that run, and maybe get more of the tentpole display on homepages, other places like that. Are there other ones you'd say, hey, these are things to consider if you're figuring out how to get assortment onto the third party marketplace? These are some of the big movers we're seeing have impact.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, delivery, we're customers. We all buy things it's going to take how long? No, thanks. So delivery promise is absolutely key. And so getting that 2-day tag is critical. That is possible to get, outside of Walmart fulfillment services. But the great thing about WFS is, we're going to guarantee 2-day or better delivery and a lot of other things. So that WFS tag, like shipped and sold by Walmart, has a really great sort of acceleration on conversion because it guarantees 2-day or better delivery, right? Which increases your consideration out of the gate. And then it being literally showing up to customers shipped and sold by Walmart boosts the confidence, right? Because you're on Walmart. This isn't a strange, seller name or DBA. So will it really get here? No. So the combination of delivery promise and customer confidence, we see, for example, if you're already offering 2-day delivery and then you move to WFS, we're seeing on average 20% or greater lift in conversion, which is, sales. If you're not yet offering 2-day on our platform and then you go directly into WFS, that conversion can spike, on average as much as 50% or more. So, but again, the customer sees that. So you're going to want to pursue that program. Pro Seller Badge, is super exciting, and it's exactly what you think it is. For our sort of top tier sellers, our gold star sellers who have met the highest standards of performance, which is about pricing and delivery and limiting sort of errors and limiting returns and having great customer service, but everything that you can sort of quantitatively measure about you being a top seller and helping our customer, we give you a badge for that, right? Which is called Pro Seller. And so there are a few of those monikers out there, right, that are really conspicuous, but sort of customer zeroes in on that I think are really important. And overall, badging is an area that Walmart is looking at for some specific spaces, right? And specific communities or like product attributes as well. And so another one, which is a review accelerator, which has just come out, that doesn't show up to the customer as like a tag that says review accelerator, but it's a way for essentially us to help you get great reviews. And of course, reviews are something that stand out as a conversion driver. So yeah, there's a bigger bag there, but those are a few.
That's great. I think the one we get asked a lot from the native e-commerce brands, because there's a maybe a negative sentiment attached to it because of bad actors in the past, the term incentivized reviews. And incentivized reviews can be synonymous, if you're coming from other marketplaces, with review manipulation, maybe. And so it's, if you're on another marketplace, that word is not to be used ever, those kind of things. One of the things that's, I think, raises the eyebrows for brands or sellers when we're talking about Walmart is there's a legitimate incentivized reviews opportunity with partners. Whether that's Bazaar Voice, Field Agent, others. There's Power Reviews, I believe, is another. There's or other syndication opportunities that allow for building that social proof directly on the PDP in search. They're fully legitimate. So when we talk about these opportunities, there's and who knows, and you probably can't. Maybe I'll just ask you. The question is this a limited time opportunity? Is this a limited window for them to build those reviews in that way? Or is this going to be an ongoing piece? You can blink twice for yes or once for no if you can't comment. But
I do not recall, Senator. No. Yeah, sometimes I can't say things. Here's probably the best way to answer that is, again, start from reviews are critical to success. We're a more nascent platform where, on the whole, there's a greater need for a base of reviews among the new sellers. And so hence we're creating programs to help drive that with legitimate reviews, for sure. Like, these are not robots writing reviews. And I would just say, the way I'll answer it is, as long as those reasons for needing to accelerate reviews remain true, I would expect us to have dedicated, programs. I don't know if they necessarily be incentives always, but dedicated programs and support, right? So run into the program now and just, help us drive it. And I'll flip it and say, like, look, this is what's going to help us, because, again, we're listening to the community, and it's like the more that the community says to us, we need help growing our review base, legitimately, the more we're going to say, of course, we're going to help you. And let's talk about what that looks like. So I hope that wasn't too, slippery and evasive, but
not at all.
Okay.
I got a couple other questions here. Ashley's got one.
Yeah.
She's asking specifically, we were talking distribution. So before we get too far past that one, they're currently in a brand over 600 stores in Walmart, not on .com yet, but asking how do we maximize that distribution model for .com? Do we ship directly to DCs? They prefer the Walmart fulfillment version. Is it an option if we join Marketplace, or do we need to set it up under? I think this is the clarification piece. Or do they need to set it up under the current Walmart vendor agreement?
No. Well, first of all, you should talk to your merchant for sure. And we could join a conversation together with you and your buyer. Overall, again, much like there's a push, for sellers to join Marketplace, WFS is a huge push as well. And I think the economics of it are super attractive. And we're also seeing a lot of sort of DSV, legacy partnerships move into WFS. So I think the short answer is, from your modeling perspective, like, we would need to get sort of 1 or 2 degrees down into like what that actual assortment is and how much is sortable versus non-sortable, and get you into the calculator, which is based on a box weight and dimensions essentially. But in the lion's share of cases, WFS is going to be a really attractive opportunity. And yeah, absolutely, that need not disrupt your current 1P relationship with the buyers, which you continue to ship to the DCs. It'll just be an enhancement.
And piggybacking off that one and related to another question we've got here, with regard to 1P brands, and when they have their buyer relationship, and maybe Marketplace has been introduced to the conversation, maybe not. One question I've received in the past was, does that buyer have visibility over the 3P side as well as 1P? And secondarily, how would you pull out, is 3P data, sales data coming from decision support through maybe retail link, something like that, or how do you gather the data as you're
Yeah.
bringing that story back to your buyer?
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, it's a sort of got a hybrid answer, right?
Okay.
The first is that yes, absolutely, your 1P buyer has visibility over your 3P business, right? We're on the same P&L, right? But we are currently still using two separate systems, right? So your 1P business will essentially be visible through Retail Link, as you mentioned, while your 3P business is going to be visible through Seller Center, right? And Looker on the back end, right? So two data sets. You as the seller will have access to both. Obviously, your buyer will have access to both, and then the decision making, right, about sort of business analysis and assortment decisions, things like that, just becomes a discussion, right, between you and your buyer, and in some cases, a three-way discussion between you and your buyer and your marketplace representative.
Gotcha. Great. Well, I've got some questions that may be more into the practices, best practices, and so kind of maybe as an introduction to that, what have you seen brands doing well when they're doing this? We mentioned Clean Call as a case study, but maybe what are some, to flip it? Maybe what are some things you've seen brands do, whether they're 1P or on the 3P side, that are maybe not best practice, things to avoid, things that maybe have not, would you, from your perspective, logically lead to a lack of ROI, maybe that they're looking for?
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot there, and I like to flip it and make it a positive, right? About
Sure.
what to do, and maybe you can infer the negative about folks that don't do it. And I'll zoom out 1 degree first, because I know we have a mixture in this crowd, right, of folks who are doing 3P, some maybe are 1P and are thinking about it. And I'll just say, you've got to start with, you have to have a lens on omni-channel, true omni-channel. You really have to lean into it. From the strategic and planning sort of origins of your soul, right? It's got to have 3P's got to have an equal seat at the table, and you got to start from yes to marketplace, and then figure out how, and just make it a channel planning decision for all the reasons we mentioned before, which is it's the way the world is going, it's where your customer is going, it's where your buyers are increasingly going, right, in terms of expectation. And so, just if we can consider that, again, table stakes, everyone here is invested in that sort of approach. Great. Where we see, I think, the most missteps out of the gate are what I like to call bashfulness, right? So I would say don't be bashful. And again, if you're going to trust that an open, safe, fair marketplace requires density of items, sellers, it moves at the speed of the customer because customer demand's always changing. It has to be responsive to not just expected demand and things like seasonals and cultural events like Super Bowl, or it's winter, it's going to be cold, right? Also unplanned demand spikes. And that's where marketplaces really have the fluidity, right, to morph into what and where the customer needs because of the flexibility of the platform. You're not locked into a certain price that you agreed to the merchant on, right? You can essentially take in the universe as it is today and calculate, how you can best serve the customer where she is and with the products that she signaled she needs at that time, right? You can't do any of that if you only bring 5% of your catalog, right? Or you decide in advance because maybe you were on another platform and you saw sales velocity and my top 3 items there were this, and therefore I'm going to bring those 3 and see how it goes. That's the backwards approach, because it's a different ecosystem. It's a different shopper, right? In some categories specifically, it has zero overlap in the Venn diagram, with the core sort of e-com shoppers of other platforms. And so don't be bashful means bring the full catalog, because you can't afford to miss this opportunity in time for radical learning, right? For hockey stick learning on everything you produce through the eyes of a new customer, right? And so you need that feedback, you need that learning. You only get it by bringing it all on and then making sure that you've done the work to make sure it has a chance to win. So just the boring but critical stuff like offer quality, listing quality, image quality, really robust, a deep dive into keyword analytics, right, and search strategy, and promotions and bundling and things like that. Again, know that this is a different kind of place, so you got to do the work. I'll say there's a lot of specialists out there. Ryan has a shop you might want to consider that does exactly this. We've got a lot more out there in terms of authorized solution providers and agencies that we love to introduce people to. But that's, number two is just don't be bashful. And then related, again, sort of a segue talking about the BlueRyses of the world and the solution providers, you might not be able to do this on your own, and so people who underestimate the workload out of the gate might not see the most immediate success that you're hoping for, because there's a skills sort of floor that you got to get to. There's just general thoughts about headcount and basic resourcing, knowing that it is a very large platform, but it operates somewhat differently than others, and that requires new skills, time spent learning, and then time spent managing it separately and differently than your other platforms, right? And so probably the fourth tip then immediately related to that is you've got to understand, you have to really just embrace the truth that it is a different ecosystem, and you have to take the time to learn that, and just learn and appreciate both the opportunity that presents, right? Again, different customer, different shopping behaviors, different opportunity to sell and win, but also the responsibility for the work you'll have to put into understanding how that ecosystem works, right? So here's a specific example is our search algorithm has different weights and measures which feed into offer listing quality than on other platforms, right? Ryan would know, but some of you might not know that image quality is a bigger weight for us than on some other platforms, right? And that, again, that's good for our customer. We've chosen that because better images, better awareness, more grabby, potentially higher conversions. But so algorithm prioritizes that. So that might mean I can't just swap out and in my images from another marketplace, right? I might actually have to, and this is where it's super specific, I might have to commission photography, right, to improve the OLQ. And keywords is another great, like when I'm making my listings, we don't like keyword stuffing in the titles. Some other platforms do. Our algorithm does not. So you're better off on our platform with really clean, concise titles, and then do the work to understand those top keywords to have in the listing itself, right, in the PDP. And so the list of things like that, the nuances, is really, really important to get right. And so that's really tip number 4 is kind of just understand it's different, right, and take the time to learn it. And then I'm probably using up a lot of airtime, but people the last one would be like, go into it with eyes wide open, that the size of the opportunity also means it's going to be messy. And that's not just a Walmart thing. I think we all know, like working in the e-commerce space, things are changing constantly. Platforms are evolving constantly. Consumer demand is changing constantly. And again, the engine just moves faster and faster and faster and faster. And what that means is you probably have to embrace an ethos of like, done is better than perfect. And also things are never done, right? So just, you got to get dirty in the problem. You got to kind of love that, like, every day you get to wake up and understand that, like, every experience, every search, every customer journey, every add to cart, every checkout, every return, every customer service experience, like all of that is a net new experience that's just somewhat different than the day before or even the moment before. And that's fundamentally thrilling, but also can, just can be a lot. So just, you got to love that, and you got to get dirty in the problem and just lean into the mess, I would say. So that was a lot again, but
that's great. No, that's,
yeah.
I think that captures it really well. I think the one other thought I have to that is it, like, the action out of that partly is you've got to test. A lot of these questions, there's questions around Walmart provides, to your point, with unique listing foundation, like what provides a good listing. Walmart provides style guides per category, per product type, of what you would like to see based on your experience of what the customer wants to see and what's best in class. And those things are then fed back with a actual quantifiable listing quality score, which really helps, which is unique to Walmart's platform, that really helps drive that. And as those two are aligned, you really get a good sense of, am I fitting these parameters in some ways? And then with that, I think part of it is testing it out, because the needle moves. Is 5 reviews enough on your listing? Well, what is the algorithm kind of feeding back to you on score, but also what are your competitors doing on search results? And what is that comparison question? So a lot of these can be answered in a static form if you just get the style guide and say what is current right now, what's going to satisfy, but also testing, embracing that chaos by saying I'm going to take an iterative approach, and my listing setup is not going to be stagnant. I don't know if you have any inputs or thoughts on how often should they think about that?
Every moment of every day. But here's the thing, like what I'll say, first of all, that repository of information is just huge and growing on our side, Seller Academy, right? And just the knowledge base that's available within Seller Center to all sellers, and the visibility, within Seller Center that, you don't have to guess what your other platform calls LQS that we call OLQ. We show you. And we don't just show you the score, we show you what's driving it down or what's really helping it. And so again, knowledge is power. And so our approach is, I mentioned live account management, right? But automation is always going to be faster than that, right? And so, and that can be available to, the broadest amount of sellers. And so that, Seller Academy, that knowledge base, the self-help tools that we provide, and then increasingly the new products that we are shipping. When I say products, I mean like platform enhancements, innovations. And so, to your point, like, one that we launched a few weeks back, or maybe months at this point, was the Walmart Marketplace Repricer tool, which, again, very simple but critical use case, which is I have to remain price competitive in order to win that buy box, right? Or also, I got to remain price competitive, but I can't outprice myself on the other platform, otherwise they might boot me, right? So I need eyes on that. But do I have enough time in the day? Right? Can I hire enough interns to go onto the other platform and just refresh the PDP, to see if the price has changed over and over and over and over again? No. So Repricer just allows you to basically select the items you have on our platform, set a ceiling and a floor of the places you'll go and won't go on price, and the tool automatically calibrates it, in real time, and just is going to float your price where it needs to be to remain price competitive, not just versus the largest other platform, but versus several platforms in the e-commerce universe. So the tool has a really broad view on the price you need to win the buy box on Walmart, and does the work for you, right? So I think, that's partially answering your question just about like, how do we help sellers, what's coming up? How do they balance their time with the opportunity? We're literally shipping, innovations weekly on that. Even something as simple as like Walmart Marketplace Capital, which is like if you're an SMB, where you're particularly cash intensive or the cash flow is particularly sensitive, when and where you move inventory and where it sits for how long is really a critical decision for you. And I'm sure it is for everyone on some level. This is where we have zero interest loans that can be available, next day ACH, provided you meet the criteria, zero interest, which you can use those to help support your inventory and WFS. You can use it to pay for your Walmart Connect sponsored search campaigns, et cetera. So I think you just see a huge lean in from leadership all the way to, the engineers and products and strategists who are all kind of rallying around this idea that we don't win unless we help the sellers win. And that's what helps the customer win, right? So I might have an idea of like the roadmap in the back of my head. And, I do not recall, Senator, I'm not allowed to say a lot of it, but you should just watch the space. And if you're live already, just watch Seller Center, right? Like literally go in there every day and, check for your notifications, check for messages, et cetera.
Any other, well, I appreciate it, Matthew. This has been great to kind of get a good comprehensive, and I know we're talking both sides of the equation here. 1P looking at the marketplace, but also 3P, all those elements, and there's so many different directions we can take this conversation. I'm looking forward to future conversations as well with other members of the team. And as we talk about, just got a comment. Please thank Matthew for the great data from Dana. Yeah, absolutely. This is wealth of knowledge. at least iron, if not something like titanium here, bringing the good data there, sharpening everybody here. Um, uh, any other thoughts, any other things that you're thinking about the future of the marketplace, or any ways that would be helpful for people listening, thinking what's a good next step for us to look at when it comes to the marketplace?
Well, sales guy at heart, the best next step is go to marketplace.walmart.com and get it going. And I think even a year ago, and certainly, as you go back further in time, this was truer and truer. It wasn't so easy, you know. And Matt will, and Ryan will remember, just we. There were folks who tried it before who maybe got burned. There were folks who came to the platform and were confused by it, and just there was a lack of clarity and maybe just a lot of friction. And um, I love that, again, back to listening and leading with sort of ears in the market. We always had our NPS scores, net promoter surveys, talking to the existing seller base. But as we all know, that's just a drop in that bucket of all the e-com sellers out there. And really the ones we have tried to listen to more is the folks not yet on the platform. Like, what's on our way? What do we need to know to help you get on the platform and win? And getting on the platform was sort of like, one of the biggest obstacles. And again, we have to maintain those standards for safety and security for the customer to keep bad actors off. But if you're a good actor and you can prove it, there's no reason you shouldn't be on the platform. And we can't let a sticky tool, or a sticky delete key or whatever's standing between you and our platform, we had to fix. Leadership saw that, they listened, and I love that they, we're talking from John Ferner, through Tom Warder, Chief Commerce Officer, all the way through that, leadership and the product and engineering and strategy layer, and they flipped it. And we've gotten great feedback over the past few months about just how much easier it is to get on the platform, right? So I think you're going to continue to see us streamlining that process, particularly in the area of catalog onboarding, item setup, right? We already have some API integrations in place, and you'll see more of those if you're working with a solution provider. We've got a cool thing now called Import Your Store, which allows you to just copy and paste the URL of your other marketplace storefront and grab the items that way. Now, I'll caution you that just because they come over doesn't mean they're optimized to win on Walmart. So don't forget that other step of going in and recalibrating and rethinking imagery and keywords. And again, there's a lot of services that can help you with that. The other big things we look out is you're just going to see us more present. This is an example of that. And so, super exciting that Matt, has created this new format that Ryan, he chose you, a leader in the space, to sort of kick off this particular track. You're going to see us, I hope to come back here, but I think just overall, you're going to continue to see Walmart people, present in the space. And whether that means we're going to see you at that next big e-com event, or some of us are going to, I'll see you at Shop Talk next week in Vegas. Or you might see some cool educational content coming to you from a group that you didn't know was focusing on Walmart this year. And so a lot of that is organic demand, which is cool. It's the Ryans of the world saying, people want this. Now's the time. We got to go build it. But it's also the result of some very intentional work behind the scenes to connect us to the community. And so I always like to land with, I've said sort of we're leading with ears in the market so we can, then be second with hands to go build. But also, even if you back up from that, I think we're trying to lead with humility, right? Which is probably not a way that folks often think about when you are the largest retailer in the country, the largest company in the history of the planet, right? So that's also super exciting to be a part of, like the ability to go into rooms and learn from experts what they need, go back and build for that and optimize for that, and bring back to that market, something really amazing, right? Are we done? No, we're not done. We're gonna keep improving, but that process, I think, that posture of leading with listening, going and building, right, and then just optimizing, and rinsing and repeating and repeating and repeating. There's a long runway for that ahead. And so I'm glad for all the feedback and the questions on this call. And I would just encourage everybody to keep it coming, right? Because we're only going to be as good as we learn together.
Fantastic. Well, Matthew, you certainly embody that humility coupled with expertise and those things, and that's something I could say I've seen in everybody I've interacted with the broader team. So, thank you for taking the time to share this with us today. And then, Matt, I'm going to go and hand it back to you as we wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and we look forward to having these conversations again in the future.
Can
Great
I first
stuff, guys.
say, I got to say first to your last comment, Ryan, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Is that the expression? As we hit the 12 noon Eastern here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great stuff, guys.
Absolutely.
It's been a real pleasure hearing from both of you today, and being on the outside after being with Walmart for so long. What you said about humility, I've never seen the company more open, more collaborative, more appreciative, even of negative feedback. And the one thing that really rings throughout this whole conversation is you've got a friend at Walmart. And in Matthew Adam Smith. So thank you so much. We are looking forward to getting back together on April 4th for office hours. If you need more information, you can go to our website. Gentlemen, thank you both so much. Have a great day. We'll see you again soon.
Really a pleasure and a privilege. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.